Hey, crew. It's Pitt, and I'm back with some more discernment. Today, we will be diving back into the book of Jasher. We will be reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points that are brought to light by the text. It is not going to be the format for everyone, but people do find value in it. So, you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue the exploration. Before we begin, if you are unfamiliar with me, there will be several playlists linked in the box down below, which will give you a better understanding of who I am and why I say the things that I do. A particular note will be the Unconventional Bible Study, which is 161 videos of me reading the Bible aloud in the same format that we are doing here and discussing the various topics that come along. The synthesis of that is the third book in this list, A House Built Upon Shifting Sands, which also has a playlist of me reading it aloud so you can get it for free and understand the points that I am arguing as we go along. The other two books are up for sale as well, and they also have a playlist where you can read them or see me read them for free. The first one, A Series of Unconventional Beliefs, is how the process came about that I can or that I have used the Holy Spirit to heal myself. It was three ways at that point in time. It is up to four now. The second one is The Green Stone. That is my alchemical work, which I consider to be the completion of the Mysterium Conjunctionis, as well as Jung's work with the archetypes. Um, with that being said, we got just a bit of a housekeeping to do before we can get into Jasher. I'm speaking to one specific person, and whether it's you or not, you will know. Don't do that again. Uh, somebody got it in their head that they were going to try to do something that they didn't know what they were doing about, and it did not work in the way that you intended it to work. Like it was a very clumsy attempt, and I may not be a master. I do not claim to be a master. I probably will never claim to be a master in my life, but I am an adept. I do know what I am doing. I do know the rules, and apparently I know them a little better than you. Now, I intervened at some expense to myself from you receiving the full consequences of your actions this time. You should be aware that that will not happen again. It will not happen for anyone else. So if you see this, please be aware. Don't send any negatives towards me. It is a remarkably bad idea to do so. You don't know the protection levels that are in play. It is not in your realm of conception. Don't do it. Like there's a million things you can do with your life. Sending negative energies in my direction is definitely one of the worst ones, right? And that's not because of me, it's because I know the rules. I'm not sending the energy multiplied by my effect. It is by the laws. It is not my decision. I intervened on your behalf at small cost to me. You are probably feeling the effects of what you did. Just be aware that that is not what it would have been if you would not, or if I would have not intervened, right? That is not trying to take too much upon myself. I am maintaining an air of humility here. I'm letting you know, don't do that again. Okay, now we can dive into Jasher. We're getting into a chapter 2 this week or today, and we're going to pick it up because that's where we left it off. Jasher chapter 2. And it was in the 130th year of the life of Adam upon the earth that he again knew his wife. And she conceived and bare a son in his likeness and his image. And she called his name Seth, saying, Because God has appointed me another seed in the place of Abel, for Cain has slain him. And Seth lived 105 years and begat a son. And Seth called the name of his son Enosh, saying, Because in that time the sons of men began to multiply, and to afflict their souls and hearts by transgressing and rebelling against God. So we are what, the second generation out of the Garden of Eden, and people are rebelling already. That's absolutely makes sense. I mean, God still walked among them, right? He was still doing the day to day. He went out and tried to find Abel, and he couldn't. Right? That was a whole thing. And so God is still there. How did they forget who he was? How did they just forget? Right? We run into that problem again in Exodus, right? They just forget about God repeatedly in Exodus, and he is actively doing things. Doesn't make any sense unless you look at it as the allegory, right? Unless you look at it as the collection of stories vocal histories from a multitude of people congregated into one place. And then if you look at it in that way, then some of this stuff makes some sense. And it was in the days of Enosh that the sons of men continued to rebel and transgress against God to increase the anger of the Lord against the sons of men, because God is not in control and he absolutely needs to get angry. And the sons of men went and they served other gods and they forgot the Lord who created them in the earth. And in those days, the sons of men made images of brass, iron, wood, and stone, and they bowed down and served them. Now, once again, I will point out that this particular point in time, they did not have iron working, right? We had a severe chronological problem in chapter one with they had iron implements to till the earth. That is not a thing, right? Not at the point in time, right? Even up until right at the time of Moses, it was still Bronze Age, right? And so brass is a possibility, iron not so much, right? Iron is a little bit later in time, and it is a much more significant much more significant contribution to history is a big term, right? That's not really what I mean, but it does increase things significantly. But at this point in time, they didn't have that. I mean, there wasn't even really a plow at this point. You had to get out there and chop at it with some stones. And if you happen to find some metal that you could work, then fine. But ironworking was not here yet. And the sons of men went and they served other gods, and they forgot the Lord who had created them in the earth. And in those days, the sons of men made images of brass, iron, wood, and stone, and they bowed down and served them. Did these images talk to them? Is that how they served them? And every man made his God, and they bowed down to them. And the sons of men forsook the Lord all the days of Enosh and his children. And the anger of the Lord was kindled on account of their works and abominations which they did in the earth. And the Lord caused the waters of the river Gihon to overwhelm them, and he destroyed and consumed them, and he destroyed the third part of the earth. And notwithstanding this, the sons of men did not turn from their evil ways, and their hands were yet extended to do evil in the sight of the Lord. And in those days there was neither sowing nor reaping in the earth, and there was no food for the sons of men, and the famine was very great in those days. And the seed which they sowed in those days in the ground became thorns, thistles, and briars. And from the days of Adam, uh, from the days of Adam was this declaration concerning the earth of the curse of God, which he cursed the earth, on account of the sin which Adam sinned before the Lord. Well, we already went through that, right? We have discovered that that is not true, right? We discussed explicitly that he was not cursing the ground in the first chapter, right? Because that differs significantly from the original narrative of Genesis, which is not a historical accurate document, right? It contains some historical things, but it is not historically accurate. Well, it's the same thing here, right? With the iron. And that is a severe problem in chronology, right? But this right here, it says there was neither sowing nor reaping in the earth, and then it says, and the seed they sowed. Well, it cannot be both. Right? I get alliteration, I get allegory, I understand those things. But if you are doing this with truth, right? Then you would say, and in those days, what they sowed was turned to thorn instead, right? That would be the narrative there. That is how it would read. If you are accurately recording that everything that you tried to sow turned to thorn, which is what the verse 8 says. But verse 7 says that they didn't even try. It says, in those days, there was neither sowing nor reaping, and there was no food for the sons of men, and famine was great, right? Now, it doesn't necessarily correlate those two things. It says that they couldn't sow or reap, but it also says there was no food. That means the other things was not working either. But then what they try to sow changes into something else. That is two completely different versions in just two sentences. That's a problem. That is a consistency error. That is going to be a severe problem. But then we got into the like we said, like in the first chapter of this, it was very much like God didn't curse the ground, right? That was what we said. And then here we are, he's cursed the earth, right? Because this man sinned, so of course I need to curse the earth. It can't be the man who gets the curse, it has to be the earth. Verse 9. And it was when men continued to rebel and transgress against God and to corrupt their ways that the earth also became corrupt. Apparently, believing that you are in charge of the earth is nothing new, right? We believe now that we are destroying the earth by giving it plant food, right? That is a whole thing that people believe, and whatever. That's what we're saying here too, right? You individually have the capacity to corrupt the entire earth. The earth became corrupt, not the men upon the earth. That is a whole separate topic. The men continue to rebel and transgress and to corrupt their ways, that the earth also became corrupt. Okay. And Enosh lived 90 years and he begat Canaan. And Canaan grew up and he was 40 years old, and he became wise and had knowledge and skill and all wisdom. And he reigned over all the sons of men, and he led the sons of men to wisdom and knowledge. For Canaan was a very wise man and had understanding in all wisdom. Well, that sounds like Solomon. And with his wisdom, he ruled over spirits and demons. Well, that sounds like Solomon too, but there is that little problem that Solomon did not exist. How much you want to bet Canaan didn't either? And he led all the sons of men to the son. Like he grew up and he was 40 years old and he became wise. Well, you don't even start becoming wise till 40. That is probably true. Right. I can't say absolutely true, but in my own case, probably true. Right. I'm 48 now. And you can definitely make the argument that 8 years ago I was not wise. You can make the argument today that I'm not wise, but it's a little less effective of an argument. He had knowledge and skill in all wisdom in 40 years. Well, that is a hell of an accomplishment, right? I'm a jack of all trades, master of none, right? I know a little bit about everything, nothing at all about all the thing in one subject. And to know everything about all things, that is a big deal, baby. In 40 years, are you kidding me? I just began to learn some things. Are you telling me that he learned all of this by 40? And he was wise enough to reign over all the sons of men. All of them, that is not excluding the ones that live on the other side of the ocean. He reigned over all the sons of men. And he led the sons of men to wisdom and knowledge. For Canaan was a very wise man and had understanding in all wisdom. You know what wisdom is? You know, there is a difference between wisdom and knowledge. Knowledge is related to intelligence, right? Intelligence is the capacity to learn, the ability to learn. Knowledge is the things that you do learn, and wisdom is the application of those things, right? There is the difference between knowing that tomato is a fruit and that it doesn't belong in a fruit salad, right? It is the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Intelligence is the function by which you gain knowledge and dispense wisdom. It is the key ingredient there. And so there is a difference there, right? And to have all wisdom implies that you know the perfect application in every situation for every single thing that ever existed. And I'm calling bullshit. And with his wisdom, he ruled over spirits and demons. Well, he did not have wisdom if he was ruling over spirits and demons. If you are unfamiliar, this is a bad idea. You can receive assistance from entities. They do exist. I fully and firmly believe, right? I believe that they exist. I believe that they can intervene and that they probably are beneficial in some cases. There are many problems with dealing with entities. The main one being that you don't know what entity you are dealing with. You might, it might tell you the truth. It might be one of those entities that can lie to you and might be telling you, yeah, I'm Michael, right? Whatever you need to hear to get you to help me, right? Whatever you need to hear to sign that contract and get under the thing, because you can be taken by these entities and you can vacate your temple through your volition and give it over to possession. That is possible, right? In my understanding and my beliefs, you only can do that if you are playing with them. They cannot come in if you don't invite them. They cannot come in if you are not entertaining them. They can only respond by invitation only. And if you set clear boundaries, there's a good chance you'll get a good entity. But if you don't, or if you don't know the proper boundaries to set, or if you call upon the wrong syllable at the wrong period of time, you might wind up in a bind. It might be a very, very bad idea. You may wind up in a situation that you don't want to be in. That is equally possible. And so my recommendation is to not, right? I have opened myself up recently to some intervention. I have not had any takers. I have had an angelic encounter. It wasn't like an interchange. He came, he told me something, he left. That was it. Right? I had a spiritual experience outside of my body where I was pulled into the heavens. There was no entity there. Right? I saw things. I was given the full knowledge. I felt the presence of, but there was no entity to view. None. I didn't call upon a name. I didn't worship anything. I didn't draw no symbols. I don't use those tools in that manner at all. Those are tools. You can use them. You can do the wrong thing and still get an effect. If you don't believe that, check out Aleister Crowley. He is an example par excellence of doing the wrong thing and getting an effect. It's just not the one you thought you were going to get. The way I started this video is exactly involved in this situation right here. If you don't know what you're doing, don't do it. It is simple, and you don't know what you're doing. It is possible. Some of these entities are positive and they can be beneficial, and some of them are absolutely not, and they are not, and you will know. Now, whether or not you find out now or 10 years down the road when you've been playing with this thing and becoming indebted to this thing, and then all of a sudden you wonder where you went, don't say you weren't warned. And if any of that is confusing to you, I have several playlists. And Canaan knew by his wisdom that God would destroy the sons of men for having sinned on the earth, and that the Lord would in the latter days bring upon them the waters of the flood. And in those days, Canaan wrote upon tablets of stone what was to take place in time to come, and he put them in his treasures. And Canaan reigned over the whole earth and turned some of the sons of men to the service of God. Okay, so this is a severe eschatological problem, right, for consistency with Genesis. I mean, just off the top, in Genesis, the only one, and we dealt with this in the introduction, in Genesis, the only one who knew there was a flood coming was Noah, right? Nobody really believed him. He didn't have assistance from people. He had some assistance from these entities, according to the book, but he didn't have assistance from his neighbors, right? They got locked out because they did not assist. It is unclear whether he even had assistance from his sons or if they just got to catch a ride. And so, um, he was the only one that knew about it. If this were true, if Canaan reigned over the whole earth and he knew by his wisdom that God would destroy the sons of men, which is who he reigns over, that he would in the latter days bring upon them the waters of the flood, which there is no archaeological evidence for ever having happened. And he understood it enough to write it down upon tablets of stone. What is the likelihood that that information would not be disseminated at a very minimum to the priests, to the mayors, right? The people in charge of the cities at the very minimum there, right? But loose lips sink ships because word gets out and goes everywhere. And so if one guy knows, then everybody's going to find out. If you want a secret held, keep it to your damn self. This is not a secret, right? This is a prophecy. It is written down that he had these things. People knew about it. How is it that nobody knew about it when Noah was like, oh, I had a dream there's a flood coming? And right? He has a dream, man. I just had a dream that God told me to build a ship. And everybody's like, what's a ship? He's like, I don't know. It's this big thing because they don't have water. They don't have seas and oceans. They are not doing this. And he's got inspiration to build this humongous thing because he had a dream of a flood. And this guy supposedly wrote down in this tablet of stone who he ruled the whole earth and was venerated for knowing all things that this would happen. How is it that they didn't correlate those two things together and be like, oh, I won't build a boat too? Like, does that even make sense? Does that fit with human nature at all? Do you think human nature has changed over time in that significant of a way? Do you think that self preservation would not have been a thing? They were beating at the doors when it was sealed. Why wouldn't they have built a boat too if there was a prophecy saying that there would be a flood? That is a consistency error. That tells me right again that either Genesis or Jasher could be true, but not the both of them together. They are separated. They are saying different things. And so it could be Genesis or it could be Jasher, but in my opinion, it is neither. They are both, right? Genesis is an amalgamation of the vocal histories of the area into a creation story that is acceptable to the peoples who are being created, right? Moses created them in the best attribution. They were created after the exile in the worst attribution, but either way, they were created peoples. And this was to bring them together. If Moses did it, he's like, hey, here's the law, follow these laws, right? He is setting into motion the religion that he is creating. Whether that is a valid religion or not, that is the actions that he is taking. And so it doesn't make any sense. Right? It doesn't make any sense that if there was this prophecy from this guy who is venerated for being the most wise on the earth, and there is somebody who is saying, hey, this prophecy is coming, and he's not a bad guy, right? He is known to be perfect in his generation. That says something, right? Even if you're the bad guy down the street, right? Even if you are the guy doing the bad things, you know about the prophecy too. And this guy's building a fucking boat. It's improbable, at least, and impossible at best. And when Canaan was 70 years old, he begat 3 sons and 2 daughters. And these are the names of the children of Canaan. The name of the firstborn, Mahalalel, the second, Enan, and the third, Mered. And their sisters were Adah and Zillah. These are the 5 children of Canaan that were born to him. It is interesting to note also that his name is Cain An, right? An is a veneration title, right? It is not quite equivalent to El, but it is somewhat, right? And Cain, the god, was 70 years old. That's an interesting interpretation of that. But he just had this prophecy. He wrote it down in stone. He didn't tell his child Mahalalel and Enan and Mered that it was going to happen. Like he didn't value them enough to let them try to save their progeny. And Lamech, the son of Methusiel, became related to Canaan by marriage, and he took his 2 daughters for his wives. And Adah conceived and bare a son to Lamech, and she called his name Jabal. And she again conceived and bare a son, and called his name Jubal. And Zillah, her sister, was barren in those days and had no offspring. For in those days the sons of men began to trespass against God. Oh, wait, they were already doing that. Remember, they told us they had been doing that. And to transgress the commandments which he had commanded to Adam. We have no record of that. To be fruitful and multiply in the earth. Well, we do. Okay, we do have this commandment, be fruitful and multiply in the earth. So they are not being fruitful and multiplying? Is that how they are trespassing against God? Because really, there wasn't a whole lot they were told, right? At this point in time, we don't have a record of any commandments, right? It was like you're kicked out of the garden because you ate of the tree that I put there so that you could eat from it, and you can't come back because there's this giant angel with a sword, right? The ground, well, depending on the version, the ground's going to be cursed and you're going to have to till it, and it's going to be hard for you to get food. You're going to be at enmity with this serpent that crawls upon the ground for the rest of your days and the days of all of your progeny. He will strike your heel, you will crush his head, all of these wonderful things that we later take her to interpret as prophecy, but there's no commandments in that. There is no, I am the Lord thy God, and you shall have no other God before me, or thou shalt not create false images, or any of them. There's none of them. There's not even really when they leave the garden, there is no commandment not to kill. They don't get that until somebody does it. And so, problems, right? And I'm not alone in that. Like, this is a problem. Be fruitful and multiply in the earth. That is the commandment, right? When Noah came down and he comes out, and the commandment is, "You done well, dude." I mean, he made this sacrifice, and he says, "You did good." He said, "So be fruitful, multiply, subdue the earth, be stewards thereof, shed no blood of man, and now you can eat meat." I mean, that's what happened with Noah. And some of the sons of men caused their wives to drink a draught that would render them barren, in order that they might retain their figures, and whereby their beautiful appearance might not fade. Now, that would be a transgression of the one commandment you have. It would. And when the sons of men caused some of their wives to drink, Zillah drank with them. Wasn't she already barren? Or is this the explanation for why? Okay, yeah. So, for in those days they had begun to trespass and creating barrenness. And the childbearing women appeared abominable in the sights of their husbands as widows, whilst their husbands lived. For to the barren ones only were they attached. And this has got to be apologetics, right? Like, I mean, it is possible, right? In the days when this was written, this was really, as far as I know, not even in the realm of conception, right? It may have sourced somewheres, because we do face this today, right? We murder more children today in the name of convenience and attraction than in the entire history of the rest of the world, right? Like, we murder more children here in this country every single year than dies in this country from heart disease and cancer combined. Like, we murder that many kids. Now, not me personally. I'm not involved in that in the slightest. I mean, I didn't vote for abortion. I don't practice it. I'm not involved in it in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. I don't perform child sacrifice, but others do on mass scale. And so this is not inconceivable. This is something that could happen, right? If you tell somebody, hey, you can take this pill and you won't conceive, that is a thing that we have, right? Contraceptions do exist, and even getting rid of it for convenience, that exists. That is what we do. It is inconvenient for me to have this life that I created, so I'm going to kill it. That's what we do. And Zillah drank with them. And the childbearing women appeared abominable in the sights of their husbands as widows, whilst their husbands lived, for to the barren ones only were they attached. And in the end of the days of years, when Zillah became old, the Lord opened her womb. Oh, wow. Well, there's something. So, Zillah gets preferential treatment for partaking of abominations. She gets special treatment. All the rest of these women who were equally partaking in the exact same thing, and not even by their own volition, right? Some of the sons of men caused their women to drink. They weren't choosing that. It was put upon them by people who could definitely exercise power above them. And the son of the man calls their wives to drink, and Zillah drank with them. So because she did it willingly, then she gets the pass. Is that what happened? But, at the end of the days and years when Zillah became old, the Lord opens her womb, and she conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Tubal Cain, saying, after I have withered away, have I obtained from him, from the Almighty God. And she conceived again and bare a daughter, and she called her name Nama. For she said, after I had withered away, have I obtained pleasure and delight. All right, so we're gonna hit this real quick, because the lore is that Tubal Cain was the one who gave all of the crafts to the people, right? And so that again is going to be chronologically inconsistent with the story for itself, with the references to iron tools at a minimum. But if this is prior to Tubal Cain, they didn't even have brass and bronze. And she conceived again and bare a daughter. We did that. Okay. And Lamech was old and advanced in years, and his eyes were dim, and he could not see. And Tubal Cain, his son, was leading him. And it was one day that Lamech went into the field, and Tubal Cain, his son, was with him. And whilst they were walking in the field, Cain, the son of Adam, advanced towards them. And Lamech was very old and could not see much, and Tubal-Cain his son was very young. And Tubal-Cain told his father to draw his bow, and with the arrows he smote Cain, who was yet far off, and he slew him, for he appeared to them to be an animal. And the arrows entered Cain's body, although he was distant from them, and he fell to the ground and died. And the Lord requited Cain's evil according to his wickedness, which he had done to his brother Abel, according to the word of the Lord which he had spoken. And I'm sorry. There's a lot here, right? I'm trying to get to a section where we can discuss it in total. But and it came to pass that when Cain had died, that Lamech and Tubal went to see the animal which they had slain, and they saw, and behold, Cain, their grandfather, was fallen dead upon the earth. And Lamech was very much grieved at having done this, and in clapping his hands together, he struck his son and caused his death. And the wives of Lamech heard what Lamech had done, and they sought to kill him. And the wives of Lamech hated him from that day, because he slew Cain and Tubal-Cain. And the wives of Lamech separated from him, and would not hearken to him in those days. And Lamech came to his wives, and he pressed them to listen to him about this matter. All right, let's go back up. Let's go back up. All right. We're getting too far down to remember here. So Lamech was old and advanced in his years, and his eyes were dim, and he could not see. And so his son was leading him in the field and told him to draw his bow. I don't know how this exists. Like, how does this story even exist? Because it is not an easy thing to strike a target with a bow, right? You can do it, you can train to do it, and you can do it fairly well. But to instruct another in the use of the bow is difficult when they can see, right? To direct somebody to be able to release an arrow across a distance and hit a target when they can't see through the sight at all, and you are just verbally instructing them up a little over a little, man, that's going to be a very, very hard sell for me. Right? I have shot pretty much anything that can be shot. I mean, I was restricted from the biggest guns in the Navy, but I got to shoot all of the smaller ones. I've shot. I've shot pistols and long arms and shotguns and automatics, fully automatics, semi-automatics. I've played with the full gamut of weapons. I've played with swords and flails and maces, pole arms and bow staves. I've played with bows and arrows. All of these things, that is fun to me. But it is a skill, and it is a skill that is difficult to do this in, right? It is going to be exceedingly difficult to direct someone who cannot see to hit a target with a bow and arrow. Not saying that it is impossible, but it is highly unlikely. Add to that the increased difficulty of taking someone who is advanced in his years and his eyes are dim and out to hunt at all. My father in law, bless his soul, was dim in his eyesight for the last couple of years of his life. He had trouble seeing. If you hold your hands up just off of your eyes, he could see the little periphery like you can. He had a difficult time seeing, and it was difficult for him to walk on a flat surface. If it transitioned to a ramp, it was a little bit off putting for him. To walk across the open ground in the desert, I mean, granted, there's large areas of you can see there's nothing here, but there's going to be spots where it's high and low, and the sand's going to throw you off. Like, that's a job, bro. Like, just getting him out there is going to be hard enough. Just transitioning from point A to point B, but to sneak up on an animal to get within range with a blind man so that he can hit it at your verbal direction with a bow and arrow. Yeah, okay. I mean, it's not impossible, but it is extremely, extremely unlikely. And so he tells him, hey, look, that looks like an animal way over there. Shoot it. Okay, well, we have to assume that at least Tubal-Cain has eyesight. And so this is God disguising Cain so that he can be smote, so that he can curse Lamech. Is that what's happening here? And the arrows entered Cain's body, although he was distant, and he fell to the ground and died. And so the Lord requited Cain's evil according to his wickedness. We've already discussed the problems with that, but whatever. According to the word of the Lord, which he had spoken. And that does solve a problem that the Genesis has, right? Genesis has a problem with if anybody should spill the blood, then the blood shall be spilled, right? That there is a, re, a required thing that must happen. If blood is spilled, then blood must be spilled to equal it out, right? At least at this point in time. And so that was an inconsistency. The fact that he had just said that it is not good to kill things, and then somebody kills something, and it's a kind of a big deal. There's only like 3 people on the planet, 4 people on the planet at this point in time. And so it's kind of a big deal that one of them dies, right? And then God can't find him. There's that whole issue. But then God doesn't punish him. He says, no, you're going to go wander, and then anybody that kills you shall be cursed, right? But everybody else that ever commits murder ever, they're required to die, except this one special person, right? It comes back down to that one special person, but that one special person never winds up being very special. They just happen to be a person. And they went and saw, and behold, Cain. Uh, And Lamech was grieved, and in clapping his hands together, he struck his son and caused his death. Now, that again is he's blind, right? And maybe he could strike, but Tubal Cain's not blind. He's a young man, at least comparatively. Like, this is kind of intimating that they were brothers, and I don't think that's consistent either, right? I have to go back to the top, but I think that Tubal Cain was the son of Lamech, right? And Lamech is the son of Cain. And so it's not their grandfather, it's Tubal's grandfather, and it's Lamech's father, and that's a whole thing. Inconsistency. And Lamech was grieved at having done this, and he clapped his hands together and killed his kid. That's a big deal, right? You accidentally kill your child. Okay, I can understand there would be some problems with that, but the wives of Lamech heard what he had done and they sought to kill him because he killed Cain and Tubal Cain. I mean, there's just a whole lot there, man. Like a whole lot that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And he said to his wives, Adah and Zillah, hear my voice, O wives of Lamech. Attend to my words, for now you have imagined and said that I slew a man with my wounds, and a child with my stripes, for their having done no violence. But surely know that I am old and gray headed, and that my eyes are heavy through age, and I did this thing unknowingly. And the wives of Lamech listened to him in this matter, and they returned to him with the advice of their father Adam, but they bore no children to him from that time, knowing that God's anger was increasing in those days against the sons of men to destroy them with the waters of the flood for their evil doings. And again, we have a reference to the flood that nobody knows about shortly thereafter. This story even intimates that some of these people are still alive when the flood happens, but they didn't know about it. But there's a prophecy of it. And Mahalalel, the son of Canaan, lived 65 years and he begat Jared. And Jared lived 62 years and he begat Enoch. Let's go ahead and do chapter 3. Jasher chapter 3. And Enoch lived 65 years and he begat Methuselah. And Enoch walked with God after having begot Methuselah. And he served the Lord and despised the evil ways of men. And the soul of Enoch was wrapped up in the instruction of the Lord, in knowledge and in understanding. And he wisely retired from the sons of men and secreted himself from them for many days. And it was at the expiration of many years, whilst he was serving the Lord and praying before him in his house, that an angel of the Lord called to him from heaven, and he said, Here I am. And he said, Rise, go forth from thy house, and from thy place where thou dost hide thyself, and appear to the sons of men, in order that thou mayest teach them in the ways in which they should go, and the work which they must accomplish to enter in the ways of God. And Enoch rose up according to the word of the Lord, and went forth from his house, from his place, and from the chamber in which he was concealed. And he went to the sons of men and taught them the ways of the Lord. And at that time assembled the sons of men and acquainted them with the instruction of the Lord. That is already more than we know about Enoch from the book of Genesis. And he ordered it to be proclaimed in all places where the Son of Man dwelt, saying, where is the man who wishes to know the ways of the Lord and good works? Let him come to Enoch. And all the sons of men then assembled to him. For all who desired this thing went to Enoch, and Enoch reigned over the sons of men according to the word of the Lord, and they came and bowed to him, and they heard his word. So they're bowing to a man. They are all entering upon the righteous path. All the sons of men then assembled to him. And so all of men are now returning to the righteous path. There is no longer any reason for a flood. Everybody is walking the right ways again. He is he has given them the instruction of the Lord, and they are taking it. And the Spirit of God was upon Enoch, and he taught all his men the wisdom of God and his ways. And the sons of men served the Lord all the days of Enoch, and they came to hear his wisdom. And all the kings of the sons of men, both first and last, together with their princes and judges, came to Enoch when they heard of his wisdom. So now we have more men than the men. And they bowed down to him, and they also required of Enoch to reign over them, to which he consented. And so now we have both the Jew and the Gentile in their entirety walking in righteousness at the instruction of Enoch. Isn't that wonderful? I think that's a wonderful thing. All of the sons of men are now walking in righteousness. They all came and heard, even their kings and their princes and judges. They all came to Enoch, and now they are walking in righteousness. And they assembled in all 130 kings and princes, and they made Enoch king over them. And they were all under his power and command. And Enoch taught them wisdom, knowledge, and the ways of the Lord, and he made peace amongst them. And peace was throughout the earth during the life of Enoch. And Enoch reigned over the sons of men 243 years. And he did justice and righteousness with all his people, and he led them in the ways of the Lord. And so we have paradise on earth again, outside of the Garden of Eden, before Resurrection Day. Enoch taught them wisdom, knowledge, and the ways of the Lord, and he made peace amongst them. And peace was throughout the earth during the life of Enoch. And so men did not have quarrels. There were no arguments. There was perfect harmony among all men. There was peace throughout the earth. If you're going to take it literally, you got to take it literally. And Enoch reigned over the son of men 243 years, and he did justice and righteousness with all his people. All the people had justice and righteousness distributed to them because that's possible. And he led them in the ways of the Lord. And these are the generations of Enoch: Methuselah, Elisha, and Elimelech, 3 sons. And their sisters were Melchah and Naamah and Methuselah, and lived 87 years, and he begat Lamech. And it was in the 56th year of the life of Lamech when Adam died, 930 years old, he at his death. And his 2 sons, with Enoch and Methuselah, his son, buried him with great pomp, as at the burial of kings, in the cave which God had told him. And in that place all the sons of men made a great mourning and weeping on account of Adam. It has therefore become a custom among the sons of men to this day. And Adam died because he ate of the tree of knowledge, he and his children after him, as the Lord God had spoken. That is not what was said. That's not what was said. What was said was, if you eat of this tree, you're going to die today. The day in which you eat it, you will die. Not that you will die 900, how many years? 900, where was he? 930 years, right? It says, on the day that you eat it, sure, you will know death, right? Surely you will know death, or you will know death. That's one of those 2 phraseologies. And you will know death on that day. Well, that day is significantly different than 930 years later, after living a long and fruitful life, after having eaten of the tree of knowledge, right? Now, there's the whole problem of knowing that it was a sin. Like, we're not going to rehash it. And it was in the year of Adam's death, which was the 243rd year of the reign of Enoch. In that time, Enoch resolved to separate himself from the sons of men and to secret himself as at first in order to serve the Lord. And Enoch did so, but did not entirely secret himself from them, but kept away from the sons of men 3 days and then went to them for 1 day. And during the 3 days that he was in his chamber, he prayed to and praised the Lord his God. And on the day in which he went and appeared to his subjects, he taught them the ways of the Lord. And all they asked him about the Lord, he told them. And he did in this manner for many years, and afterwards concealed himself for 6 days, and appeared to his people 1 day in 7. And after that, once a month, and then once in a year, until all the kings, princes, and sons of men sought for him and desired again to see the face of Enoch and to hear his word. But they could not, as all the sons of men were greatly afraid of Enoch, and they feared to approach him on account of the godlike awe that was seated upon his countenance. Therefore, no man could look at him, fearing he might be punished and die. Now, there is the lore that conversing with God does change your countenance and makes you a bit unbearable to look at. It pales you and you brighten, and it is hard to stare at. There is the possibility of the countenance being the aura, that is my assertion, the divine chakra, which is external from you and accessed through your alignment of the internal chakras. Uh, that would be empowered in countenance, and that is definitely a thing. But I don't believe that this is a faithful representative of anything, right? There's like this part right here at the beginning, as he did in the manner for many years, and afterwards 6 days, and then a month. And that is reminiscent of Odysseus, which, definitely is a theme through the New Testament. And so probably just an amalgamation of legends again at this point, but this is apologetics. So it's taking in and apologizing at the same time for things. Uh, because like we got like a paragraph possible out of Enoch, the entirety of the Old Testament at all, right? You could possibly string together, I don't even think you could get 300 words out of it, right? For the every reference to Enoch at all in the book. And so we've got significantly more than that here, right? Where did it come from? This source that disappeared in the 1600s, possibility again, but not very likely. More likely, this is created, especially with the anachronisms. So, and all the kings and princes resolved to assemble the sons of men and to come to Enoch, thinking that they might all speak to him at the time that he should come forth amongst them, and they did so. And the day came when Enoch went forth, and they all assembled and came to him. And Enoch spoke to them the words of the Lord, and he taught them wisdom and knowledge. And they bowed down before him, and they said, May the king live, may the king live. And some time after, when the kings and princes of the sons of men were speaking to Enoch, and Enoch was teaching them the ways of God, behold, an angel of the Lord then called unto Enoch from heaven, and wished to bring him up to heaven and make him reign there over the sons of God, as he had reigned over the sons of men upon the earth. Well, that throws some kings into some New Testament stuff, doesn't it? If God was only ever incarnated one time, which is the contention of the New Testament, the the presumptive language that is given is that Jesus was pre-existent in heaven, and then he incarnated, and then he went back. Right? That is an oversimplification, granted, and not for everyone, granted. But that is the general for a wide swath of people, right? You're going to have people that fall outside of the generalities in its extremity in Christianity because of the excessive amounts of variation, right? You have Like, I use the example, I couldn't dance at my own wedding because First Baptist is a sin to dance, but in the Pentecostal church, it's kind of a sin not to, right? In the apostolic, spirit-filled, Holy Ghost jumping pews, it's kind of a sign that you don't have the spirit if you're not dancing to the music. And so that is two extremities of the same religion, right? They both take the exact same text and interpret those two completely opposites from it. And so there will always be disagreement for specific sects of the religion. But overall, that is the general sense, right? Um, and so this is saying that a mortal man was good enough to be placed over the sons of God in heaven. Yeah, right. That's going to be a problem. Like, it's not a problem for me because I don't believe it, but that's going to be a problem for people trying to say that Enoch is real and the New Testament is real, or not Enoch. What is it? At Jasher, right? This is saying Jasher is real and the New Testament is real. That's going to be a severe problem. When at that time Enoch heard this, he went and assembled all the inhabitants of the earth and taught them wisdom and knowledge and gave them divine instructions. And he said to them, I have been required to ascend into heaven, and therefore I do not know the day of my going. Well, he kind of does. But also, this again is saying, right, he's already once taught all of the sons of men exactly correct and corrected their path, and they were following it for hundreds of years. And then he, in particular, kind of slacked off for a little while, and I guess they fell away. And so now he is doing it again before he leaves and just prior to the flood. And now, therefore, I will teach you wisdom and knowledge, and I will give you instruction before I leave you how to act upon the earth whereby you may live. And he did so. So he gave them wisdom and knowledge. Again, knowledge is the things that you learn, and wisdom is the application of those things. And so he is teaching them how to work perfectly before he leaves. I am sure we can find examples in the primary text of Genesis where immediately after Enoch, everybody was living in perfect accord with no war or disharmony whatsoever. I am sure we can find that. And he taught them wisdom and knowledge, and gave them instruction. And he reproved them, and he placed before them statutes and judgments to do upon the earth. And he made peace amongst them, and he taught them everlasting life, and dwelt with them some time, teaching them all of those things. And that does solve another problem in Genesis, right? In Genesis, they are commanded several times, the statutes you were commanded, or the commandments, right? Before they were a thing, the commandments were not a thing prior to Moses. We do not have any evidence in Genesis at all of them being given these commandments. The only commandments are go out and have a lot of sex and populate the earth. It doesn't even specify mono, right? It doesn't even say that you are required to have only one sexual partner. That is not what is intimated to them at all. Be fruitful and multiply, spread the seed a little bit. And like, I'm not arguing for polygamy. I'm just saying that that's not an intrinsic part of the religion at this point in time. And so they didn't have statutes. They didn't have commandments in Genesis. And so telling them to follow the commandments in Genesis is a problem. It's an anachronism. It is a discrediting thing. And here it is explained for. We are in apologetics, and so apology. And at that time, the sons of men were with Enoch, and Enoch was speaking to them. And they lifted up their eyes, and the likeness of a great horse descended from heaven, and the horse paced in the air. And they told Enoch what they had seen, and Enoch said to them, on my account does this horse descend upon earth? This time has come, and when I must go from you, and I shall no more be seen by you. And the horse descended at that time and stood before Enoch, and all the sons of men that were with Enoch saw him. And Enoch then again ordered a voice to be proclaimed, saying, Where is the man who delighteth to know the ways of the Lord his God? Let him come this day to Enoch before he is taken from us. So he ordered the angel to say that. Okay. And all the sons of men assembled and came to Enoch that day, and all the kings of the earth with their princes and counselors remained with him that day. And Enoch then taught the sons of men wisdom and knowledge, and gave them divine instruction. And he bade them serve the Lord and walk in his ways all the days of their lives. And he continued to make peace amongst them. Well, again, we have chronology problems, right? They have been taught this 3 times, right? All of the sons of man assembled, that is, all of the people on the earth, and all the kings of the earth, all the people on the earth, princes and counselors, all the people on the earth, and he taught it to them again, wisdom and knowledge, what to learn and how to use it, gave them divine instruction, and bade them to serve the Lord. Because it is necessary to repeat that in such a short amount of time. And it was after this that he rose up and rode upon the horse and went forth, and all the sons of men went after him, about 800,000 men, and they went with him 1 day's journey. Well, that's new. And the second day he said to them, return home to your tents. Why will you go? Perhaps you may die. And some of them went from him, and those that remained went with him 6 days' journey. And Enoch said to them every day, return to your tents, lest you may die. But they were not willing to return, and they went with him. And on the 6th day, some of the men remained and clung to him, and they said to him, we will go with thee to the place where thou goest, as the Lord liveth. Death shall separate us. And they urged so much to go with him that he ceased speaking to them. And they went after him and would not return. And when the kings returned, they caused a census to be taken in order to know that the number of remaining men that went with Enoch. And it was upon the 7th day that Enoch ascended into heaven in a whirlwind with horses and chariots of fire. And on the 8th day, all the kings that had been with Enoch sent to bring back the number of men that were with Enoch in that place from which he ascended into heaven. And all those kings went to the place where they found the earth there filled with snow, and upon the snow were large stones of snow. And one said to the other, come, let us break through the snow and see. Perhaps the men that remained with Enoch are dead and are now under the stones of snow. And they searched, but could not find him, for he had ascended into heaven. That appears to be the end. And I guess we'll go ahead and call this one in an hour again today. That's going to bring us to the end of chapter 2 and 3 of Jasher. And hopefully, I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a series of somewhat difficult understandings. I understand that I hold some unconventional beliefs, and I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those. It is not intentional, but it is not something that I apologize for. We're here to try to discern truth, to separate the things that are from the things that aren't, to find out contradictory sources, and to quite often find contradictions within the source itself. That was my major problem with the Bible when I began going through right. The Bible study did not start off an unconventional Bible study. It started off lessons from the book. And then it evolved into the unconventional Bible study because I was watching or reading the Bible as it is, taking the words, seeing what they meant, getting behind the message to see what it was actually there. And it turns out that it is internally inconsistent in a variety of ways. It is directly contradictory to itself quite often within the same chapter. We have the exact same problem here in Jasher. I mean, things that are internally chronologically inconsistent and therefore cannot be. And so we cannot take it as a literal source, but it's a fine source for allegory, right? This is speculations taken from history about the things that we wonder about today. What was the deal with Enoch? That is a major issue if you read the Bible. You're like, okay, this guy was this important that God pulled him up because he was perfect. He didn't kill him, he pulled him up from the earth. But you learn nothing else about him. Well, this is an apology for that. This is somebody saying, well, this is the reason why. Well, now we know, but it's not consistent. It is directly contradictory to the original story in which it is apologizing for. It is chronologically inaccurate. We're still going to continue to do the story. We're going to work through this in the exact same manner that we have been, and we're going to discern good from bad. There may be some good stuff in here. Doesn't appear to be, but there might be. And so, if you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow, throw me a comment whether you agree or disagree with anything that is stated. If you put it in the box down below and it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If you truly found value, I ask that you hit the super thanks, consider joining for a membership, or pick up a copy of any of my books. You can also reach out to me through the links provided in the box down below. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete, just the way that you are. And this has been Pit Steak. Peace. Thank you, Lord.